Sarah Chen had exactly $100 left to her name her food money for the next 2 weeks. But seeing the elderly man in tattered clothes sitting alone on the campus steps, hungry and ignored by hundreds of passing students, she made a choice that would define her character. She had no idea the homeless man was actually a retired police chief about to revolutionize her future. Where are you watching this video from? Don't forget to leave your city in the comments as well. Remember, every comment is a voice. Every voice is a change. The November wind cut through Metropolitan University's campus like a blade, sending fallen leaves skittering across the concrete walkways. Students hurried between buildings, bundled in expensive coats and designer scarves, their minds focused on midterm exams, weekend plans, and the dozen daily concerns that occupied their privileged lives. Sarah Chen walked more slowly than most, not because she had more time, but because she had learned to appreciate what little she had. At 19, she was a sophomore studying social work on a partial scholarship, working 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore and stretching every dollar until it screamed for mercy. The worn backpack on her shoulders contained 3 textbooks she'd bought used, a water bottle she'd refilled 4 times that day, and her wallet which held exactly $100. Her food money for the next 2 weeks, carefully budgeted down to the last cent. As she climbed the steps to the university library, she noticed him. An elderly black man sat hunched on the concrete steps, his back against the cold stone pillar. His clothes were layers of mismatched fabric, an old military jacket that had seen better decades, pants that were too big, shoes with holes that let in the autumn chill. His graying beard was unkempt, his hands were dirty, and a cardboard sign leaned against his knee. Hungry. Anything helps. God bless. Students flowed around him like water around a rock. Some looked away quickly, comfortable with the presence of need in their ordered world. Others pulled out phones, pretending urgent conversations to avoid eye contact. A few dropped loose change into his waiting cup, the coins clinking with hollow charity before they hurried away. Sarah stopped. She studied the man's face, seeing something that the rushing students missed. Despite the circumstances, despite the obvious hunger and cold, there was dignity in his posture, intelligence in his eyes, and something else, a weariness that went deeper than physical fatigue. Chief Marcus Washington, 66 years old, and exactly 1 year into retirement, sat in his carefully constructed disguise and watched the parade of young privilege pass by. This wasn't an official operation. The Metropolitan Police Department had no idea their former chief was conducting his own social experiment on human compassion. After 40 years in law enforcement, Marcus had seen the best and worst of humanity. He'd risen through the ranks from beat cop to police chief, earning respect through integrity, wisdom, and an unwavering commitment to justice. But retirement had left him restless, questioning whether all those years of service had made any real difference in how people treated each other. So, he devised his own test. For 3 days, he'd sat on these steps in disguise, watching how the next generation, these educated, privileged young people who would soon lead society, responded to someone they perceived as beneath them. The results had been depressingly predictable, until now. The young Asian woman standing before him wasn't looking through him or around him. She was looking at him, really seeing him as a human being. Her clothes were clean but inexpensive, her backpack worn, her shoes practical rather than fashionable. She had the look of someone who understood struggle. "Excuse me, sir," Sarah said quietly, crouching down to his eye level. "When did you last eat?" Marcus was surprised by the directness of the question. Most people, when they bothered to engage at all, asked vague questions or made assumptions. This young woman wanted practical information. "Yesterday," he answered, truthfully, his voice roughened by the cold. "Had some soup at the shelter." Sarah nodded, absorbing this information. She glanced around at the stream of students, then back at him. "What's your name?" "Marcus," he replied, using his real first name. "Sarah." She shifted her backpack and pulled out her wallet. Marcus watched as she opened it, revealing exactly 5 $20 bills, her entire visible wealth. She pulled out all 5 bills. "Sarah," Marcus said, his voice dropping its pretense slightly. "You don't need to." "Yes, I do," she interrupted quietly. "This is my food money for the next 2 weeks, but I can eat ramen and peanut butter sandwiches." "You need this more than I do." She pressed the 5 20s into his hands. 24 hours later, the thunder of engines and flash of emergency lights brought the entire dormitory complex to life. 12 patrol cars, 2 SUVs, and a command vehicle formed a precision formation outside Riverside Hall. Students pressed against windows, phones recording. As officers in dress uniforms stepped out with military precision, Marcus stared at the money in his hands, genuinely moved by the gesture. In 40 years of police work, he'd seen people give charity out of guilt, obligation, or social pressure. But this young woman was giving him everything she had, and she was doing it with the kind of genuine compassion that couldn't be faked. "Sarah," he said carefully, "this is too much. You need this money." She smiled, not the pitying smile he'd received from others, but the warm smile of someone who understood struggle and chose kindness anyway. "We all need things," she said simply. "Right now, you need this more than I do. Besides," she added with a slight grin, "pretty creative with instant noodles." She stood up, shouldering her backpack. "There's a good soup kitchen on 5th Street, about 6 blocks east of here. They serve dinner from 5 to 7. The food is decent, and the people are kind." Marcus looked up at her in amazement. Not only had she given him her last money, but she was providing practical information to help him. This wasn't just charity. This was genuine care. "Thank you," he said, and meant it more than she could possibly know. "Take care of yourself, Marcus," Sarah replied, and continued up the steps into the library. Marcus sat for a long time after she left, holding the $5 bills, and thinking about what he'd just witnessed. In 3 days of testing, this young woman was the first person to treat him as a complete human being. She'd asked his name, looked him in the eye, given sacrificially, and offered practical help. She reminded him why he'd become a police officer. In the first place, that evening, Marcus returned home to his comfortable house in the suburbs, removed his disguise, and made a series of phone calls. By morning, his plan was in motion. Sarah Chen woke up in her tiny dorm room the next morning to the sound of chaos in the hallway. Her roommate, Jennifer, was pressed against the window, her face pale. "Sarah, you need to see this," Jennifer whispered. Urgently, Sarah stumbled to the window and looked down at the parking lot below. Her stomach dropped. The entire area was filled with police vehicles. 12 patrol cars formed a perfect perimeter around Riverside Hall. 2 black SUVs sat in the center of the formation. A mobile command unit had been positioned near the main entrance. Officers in dress uniforms stood at attention beside their vehicles. "Oh, God," Jennifer breathed. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Sarah said, her mind racing. "I haven't done anything." Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Miss Chen, please report to the dormitory lobby immediately. This is Chief Marcus Washington, Metropolitan Police Department." Sarah's hands shook as she read the message. Chief Washington? The name was familiar. She'd seen it in local news articles about police reform and community outreach. But why was he texting her? As Sarah stepped into the dormitory lobby, she saw him immediately. The elderly man from yesterday stood in the center of the room. But everything about him was transformed. Gone were the tattered clothes and hunched posture. In their place stood Chief Marcus Washington in full dress uniform, his chest decorated with commendations spanning 4 decades of service. Sarah descended the stairs to the lobby in her pajamas and slippers, her heart pounding. Students had gathered in small groups, whispering and pointing at phones showing videos of the police presence outside. Then she saw him, the homeless man from yesterday. Marcus stood in the center of the lobby, but he was completely transformed. The tattered military jacket had been replaced by a crisp police dress uniform with chief's insignia. The unkempt beard was neatly trimmed. The hunched posture had given way to the bearing of a man accustomed to command, but it was still him. "Still Marcus, Miss Chen," he said, his voice carrying the natural authority she hadn't noticed yesterday. "Thank you for joining me." Sarah stared, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. You're a police officer?" "Retired Chief of Police Marcus Washington," he replied. "I served the Metropolitan Police Department for 40 years. The lobby had gone completely silent. Every student was staring at the interaction between the girl in pajamas and the decorated police chief. "I don't understand," Sarah said quietly. Yesterday I was conducting an unofficial experiment in human compassion," Marcus explained. "For 3 days. I sat on those steps in disguise, observing how the students at this university, the future leaders of our community, responded to someone they perceived as homeless and in need." Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "You were testing us?" "I was testing the character of your generation," Marcus confirmed. "And in 3 days, you were the only person who treated me as a complete human being. You gave me your name, asked for mine, me in the eye, and gave me everything you had without hesitation." He reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out the $5 bills she'd given him. This represents 2 weeks of food money for a college student working part-time to support herself, he continued, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Miss Chen sacrificed her own welfare for a stranger she believed was in need. That level of compassion and selflessness is exactly what we look for in the men and women who serve our community. Chief Washington gestured to one of his officers, who stepped forward carrying an official folder. Miss Chen, your act of kindness yesterday revealed something that no background check or interview could assess: genuine character. I would like to offer you a full scholarship to our criminal justice program. Sarah's legs felt weak. I'm sorry, what? Miss Chen, Marcus continued. Are you familiar with the Metropolitan Police Department's Community Leadership Scholarship program? Sarah shook her head, still too shocked to speak. It's a full 4-year scholarship program for students who demonstrate exceptional character and commitment to community service. Recipients receive full tuition, books, housing allowance, and guaranteed placement in our police academy upon graduation. He handed her the folder. Yesterday, you passed the most important qualification test we have. You proved that your compassion for others outweighs your concern for yourself. Sarah opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a formal scholarship offer worth over $80,000, enough to cover her remaining education completely and eliminate the financial stress that had dominated her college experience. I can't accept this, she stammered. I was just helping someone who needed help. Exactly, Marcus smiled. That's precisely why you're the right person for this program. The lobby erupted in whispers and cell phone cameras. Sarah looked around at her fellow students, the same students who had walked past Marcus yesterday without a second glance, and saw a mixture of amazement, envy, and dawning understanding. Chief Washington, Sarah said quietly, why didn't you just ask for volunteers? Why the disguise? Marcus's expression grew serious. Miss Chen, anyone can act compassionate when they know they're being watched or when there's a potential reward. True character is revealed when people think no one is looking and there's no personal benefit to be gained. He gestured toward the windows where the police convoy waited. Every officer out there volunteered to be here this morning when I told them about your kindness. They wanted to meet the young woman who gave her last $100 to a stranger. But I study social work, not criminal justice, Sarah protested. Social work and law enforcement serve the same goal: protecting and serving the community, Marcus replied. Your current studies show you already understand that calling. We're simply offering you additional tools and opportunities to make an even greater impact. Sarah looked down at the scholarship papers, then back at Marcus. What happens if I say no? Then you keep these, Marcus said, pulling the 520s from his pocket, and continue being exactly the kind of person this world needs more of. But Sarah, I've spent 40 years identifying people with the character and compassion to serve others. You have qualities that can't be taught: genuine empathy, moral courage, and the willingness to sacrifice for strangers. Those qualities, combined with proper training, could help you change countless lives. 6 months later, Cadet Sarah Chen stood at attention during the Metropolitan Police Academy graduation ceremony. In the audience, Chief Washington watched with pride as the young woman whose $100 act of kindness had restored his faith in humanity took her oath to serve and protect. Over the following weeks, Sarah learned more about Marcus Washington's legendary career. He started as a beat cop in the city's toughest neighborhoods, worked his way up through detective work and management, and eventually became the youngest chief in the department's history. He'd been known for innovative community policing programs, police reform initiatives, and an unwavering commitment to treating every citizen with dignity and respect. He'd also established the scholarship program after seeing too many good people choose other careers because they couldn't afford the education and training required for law enforcement. Sarah accepted the scholarship. The transition wasn't easy. Criminal justice courses challenged her in different ways than social work, requiring her to think about legal frameworks, investigative procedures, and law enforcement tactics. But the core mission, helping people and serving the community, remained the same. Marcus became her mentor, meeting with her monthly to discuss her progress and share insights from his 4 decades of experience. He taught her that good police work wasn't about authority or power, but about problem solving, community building, and treating every interaction as an opportunity to make someone's day better. The badge doesn't make you special, he told her during one of their mentoring sessions. It makes you responsible. Every day, you'll have the opportunity to either build trust or destroy it, to help someone or harm them, to make your community safer, or more divided? Sarah threw herself into her studies, maintaining a perfect GPA while working part-time and volunteering with community outreach programs. She learned defensive tactics and legal procedures, but also conflict resolution and cultural sensitivity. She studied crime statistics and investigative techniques, but also psychology and social dynamics. Other students sometimes asked her about the scholarship. The story had become campus legend. Sarah always answered the same way: I helped someone who needed help. That's what anyone should do. During her junior year, Sarah participated in a ride-along program, spending shifts with veteran officers to observe real police work. One evening, she and Officer Rodriguez responded to a domestic disturbance call in a low-income neighborhood. When they arrived, they found a family in crisis: an unemployed father, an overwhelmed mother, and 3 hungry children. The neighbors had called police because of shouting, but it quickly became clear that the real problem was desperation, not violence. While Officer Rodriguez handled the official procedures, Sarah quietly talked with the family. She provided information about food banks, job placement services, and child care assistance. She listened without judgment and offered practical help. Later, Rodriguez told her, "That wasn't police work you did in there. That was something better. That was human work." Marcus heard about the incident and smiled when Rodriguez told him the story. Sarah was developing exactly the qualities he'd hoped to see: the ability to see beyond the immediate problem to the underlying human need. The academy training was intense. Physical fitness, weapons training, defensive tactics, legal procedures, and emergency response filled 18 weeks of rigorous preparation. Sarah struggled with some aspects. She wasn't naturally athletic, and the physical demands pushed her beyond her comfort zone. But she excelled in the areas that mattered most to her: community relations, conflict de-escalation, and crisis intervention. Her instructors noted her exceptional empathy and her ability to connect with people from different backgrounds. Graduation day arrived in May, exactly 2 years after that November afternoon when Sarah had given her last $100 to a stranger on the library steps. The ceremony was held in the city's largest auditorium, packed with families, friends, and department leadership. Sarah's parents had flown in from California, beaming with pride as their daughter prepared to begin her career in law enforcement. Marcus Washington sat in the front row, wearing his dress uniform despite being retired. When Sarah's name was called, he stood and applauded with the enthusiasm of a proud father. Cadet Sarah Chen, the academy commander, announced, graduating summa cum laude with specialization in community policing and social services integration. As Sarah walked across the stage to receive her certificate and badge, she caught Marcus's eye. He nodded once, a simple gesture that carried the weight of respect, pride, and belief in her future. After the ceremony, during the reception, Marcus approached Sarah and her family. "Mr. and Mrs. Chen," he said, shaking hands with Sarah's parents. "You've raised an exceptional daughter. She's going to make a real difference in this community." Sarah's mother, still emotional from the ceremony, asked, "Chief Washington, how did you know Sarah would succeed in this program?" Marcus smiled, looking at Sarah with genuine affection. "Mrs. Chen, I've interviewed hundreds of candidates for law enforcement positions. I've seen people with perfect test scores, athletic achievements, and impressive resumes. But your daughter showed me something that can't be measured or taught. She showed me a heart that puts others before herself." He turned to Sarah. "Officer Chen, you're being assigned to the community policing unit in the downtown district. It's challenging work, but it's exactly where your skills will make the biggest impact." Sarah nodded, understanding the significance of the assignment. The downtown district included the university where they'd met, the neighborhoods where she'd grown up understanding struggle, and the communities where police-citizen relations needed the most attention. "Chief," she said quietly, "I want you to know that giving you that money wasn't charity. It was just what anyone should do." Marcus's expression grew serious. "Sarah, that's exactly why you're going to be an extraordinary police officer. You don't see helping others as exceptional, you see it as normal. If we had more people like you, in law enforcement and everywhere else, the world would be a much better place." As the reception continued around them, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. His experiment in human compassion had started with disappointment at the callousness he'd observed. But Sarah's simple act of kindness had restored his faith, not just in young people, but in the possibility that genuine goodness still existed in the world. 1 year later, Officer Sarah Chen was named Community Policing Officer of the Year for her innovative programs connecting at-risk youth with educational opportunities and her success in reducing crime through relationship building rather than enforcement. When she accepted the award, she thanked many people, but she ended her speech with the simple statement, "Sometimes the most important thing you can do is see someone who needs help and choose to help them. That choice doesn't just change their day, it changes who you are." And the audience retired. Chief Marcus Washington wiped tears from his eyes and remembered a cold November afternoon when a young woman had given her last $100 to a stranger. That act of sacrifice had changed both their lives, proving that kindness is never wasted and that sometimes the smallest gestures create the biggest transformations. The 5 $20 bills Sarah had given him were framed on his office wall, along with the photo from her academy graduation. Underneath, a small placard read, "True character is revealed when no one is watching." It was a lesson that had taken him 40 years to fully understand, taught by a 19-year-old who simply knew that helping others was the right thing to do. Where are you watching this video from? Don't forget to leave your city in the comments as well. Remember, every comment is a voice. Every voice is a change. And what about you? Have you ever encountered such an event or situation? Write in the comments. We would like to hear your story.